Welcome to Girl Talk. I'm Nicole D. Miller, author, blogger, speaker, hybrid book publisher, and your host. At Girl Talk, we are a safe space for female leaders to engage in healing and edifying conversation. This is your Me Too, empathetic corner, where we have authentic and transformative dialogue designed to uplift and connect high-achieving women like you. Are you looking for a safe space to cultivate sisterhood with other like-minded female bosses? Leave your cape at the door and join the conversation. Hi guys, and welcome to Girl Talk One-on-One. I'm your host, Nicole D. Miller. As promised, I have some fun treats for you with our one-on-one conversations with the men from Something for the Fellas. Now, in case you missed our very first all-male panel, you definitely need to run it back before you proceed. Our dialogue with Jumar, Lawrence, Walt, Brandon, and Steven was top tier, and honestly, I expected nothing less. But what I could not have foreseen were all the ways our community was impacted by opening up this space. Being in person has been a game changer for Girl Talk. As some of you know, we started on Zoom with a few close friends of mine. But now that we're in the flesh, there is simply no going back. With our most recent discussion, we had a chance to share this space with the men. In this upcoming segment, you'll hear from Lawrence D. Adams and Jumar Newell. I had the chance to do their interviews weeks prior to the panel, and we talked about having a father and male mentors, Black love, diversity needed in business, and so much more. The one-on-one interviews are typically laid back and disarming, and they're a chance for you to get to know the panelists more personally. Feel free to reach out to either of these men using their contact info in the show notes. And make sure to listen to the very end. There's a special sneak peek of a moment between Lawrence and Jumar from the panel discussion. Without further ado, grab your favorite beverage, sit back, relax, and join the conversation. Thanks for joining Girl Talk One-on-One. I am here with Lawrence D. Adams. He is an upcoming panelist for our next Girl Talk Something for the Fellas, our first all-male panel discussion. So I'm super excited. Lawrence, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and your platform.
Sure. My name is Lawrence D. Adams. I am on every social media. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube. And I host a podcast for almost over 10 years called The Thinking Class, where I talk to men about how they can first love themselves and move up to love someone else.
I love that. And I'm very intrigued to know what inspired you to start that podcast. How did you find yourself in that space?
So and in 2007, I think I started it. I did a radio for a stint. And what I did was I wanted to have my own. And so when podcasting wasn't even there, it was on Blog Talk Radio, and I was going through MySpace. I said, let me do my own. And that started me in the journey of doing podcasting. Actually, it was for relationship purposes. So I talked to men and women. And so once I seen a problem. The issue, I could talk to men and women, but I said, let me get the men correct first. Then I can go back and talk to the women.
So what was it in your personal life journey that kind of put you in a position to be a coach for men, an advisor for men? What led to your own inner healing and growth?
So what led to my own inner healing and growth was I failed a lot. I did everything wrong. And I remember I was living in Atlanta and I was walking up the street and I was going to the library and I bumped into a book and I was at the library and I said, I got to get myself together because I realized what I was taught and what I was told didn't add up and my life was not working. And what I did was I went every off day. I would go to the library in Roswell, Georgia, and immerse myself inside of books to get my mind together, to get my soul together, and especially get my spirit together.
And I love your transparency and vulnerability here at Girl Talk. That is what we are about. We are all imperfect beings, and it really is about enduring, growing, fighting, to heal and to become better versions of ourselves. It's not about perfection. So I'm a storyteller, as you know, you're a fellow author. I love hearing the story of the behind the scenes. I think with social media, we kind of catch the highlights. With brand storytelling, you kind of create an image, which is a part of the truth. But I feel like when we pull back the layers, we can go deeper. So for me, I just love that you were able to say, like, my life was a hot mess.
It
But then
was.
you did the deep work. Were there any other resources that helped you in your journey of self-healing and growth?
So I will say this, one of the things that helped me to grow, I had mentors and I had my father in my life. Let me say that.
Yeah.
I had my father in my life and I had mentors. So even doing my ups and downs and homelessness to divorce to everything that was going on, I had men around me who were speaking to my life and pushed me to the next level. So I didn't do this. I didn't get here by myself. Any man who believes they can get to their destiny by themselves is lying to themselves. I had men. Before this we even got live today, I was on call with my mentor.
Awesome.
And so that's important.
And I love that you bring up a really important topic about having a father in the home, right? Unfortunately, in our community, it's rare. I definitely think that men who have positive male role models come out a little bit more self-assured, more confident, and more resilient, or at least they have some tools in their toolkit to be able to thrive. So, how did you find the other male mentors in your life?
You know what? I didn't go out looking for them. That's the interesting thing. I always was intrigued by older men and learning their life lessons. So I would ask questions. I say, well, how did you do that? Well, how did you get here? And what people don't realize, mentors, or say in this case, in this context, older men want to share, but do the younger men have the ear to listen to the advice and the wisdom that they have? And so that was my way into finding the right mentor or finding the right group of men who were able to pour in my life. I did not come there talking like I knew everything. I shut my mouth. I had my two ears and I listened to what they were saying. And then I thought about it. Does it apply to my life? And that's how it works. So I didn't go out there looking for a mentor. That actually, as the Chinese proverb goes, where the student is ready, this teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes vice versa.
So for me, I'm very intrigued. You're in a space where you're able to mentor others through your podcast and you're receiving mentorship, which you hit on a key thing, humility. We need to humble ourselves. We need to want to be taught and to be a good listener. So, what do you feel like your purpose is? It sounds like you're walking in a lot of your purpose, but if you could define it in a few sentences, like what would you say that is?
So my purpose is to see men, especially men, because I have two sons, two awesome sons, is to see men be the best version of themselves. First, to love themselves, to love someone else, and make a mark on this earth that they were here. And I'm saying especially Black men. That is, if anything, that will be part of my purpose or part of my drive or passion at this time.
And that makes me excited to have you on this panel discussion. As you know, Girl Talk is geared towards female leaders. But it was put on my heart to really open this space for you guys because I do believe we have more opportunities to kind of dialogue, touch on, inner healing topics and kind of find that fellowship amongst women. It does seem like you have that with other men, so you'll be able to offer that to the other men and really bring that to the table. So I definitely think this is a perfect space for you to share. Now, one of the topics we've discussed at Girl Talk, and I definitely want to kind of highlight my girl Nikki B, okay, because she was in this particular discussion. But the topic was, can Black love still happen? And we had that discussion about a year ago. Nikki B was, single. So I definitely want to get your thoughts on that since in my eyes, you're the Mr. Nikki B now, but we won't coin you that publicly. But yeah, I wanted to know with this new relationship that you have with Nikki B and you guys seem to be flourishing, what is your take on can Black love still happen?
So this is the thing. I have a common theme that's been going with even with this conversation and even with her. Is that yes, Black love can lie. But first, before we talk about loving someone else, we have to learn to love ourselves. One of the things I told her, and she'll say it, I said, I love me, and I hope you love yourself. I cannot love you past the point that you don't love yourself. And so, in essence, yes, Black love can happen. And what happens is it's revolutionary when two individuals come together and they're on purpose, on code. They're doing things that are in sync. It's amazing. So yes, Black love can. It definitely can happen. It definitely can happen. But you got to be ready when it comes.
So
Gotta
what
be
makes
ready.
what makes a person ready?
You know what makes a person ready for when it comes is first loving yourself and being honest with yourself. There is no one out there perfect. No one. And what I think a lot of people are, we have a fairy tale illusion of what Black love is because we see it on TV or we see it over here on the reels or we see it. No, it's not like that. Once you become completely honest with yourself and honest with the other person, that's when you could experience real true Black love. One of the things that one of our foundations is loving yourself, being honest with yourself, and then also to being transparent. Can I share with you the parts of me that I can't share with anybody else? Because transparency leads to what? To intimacy. You think intimacy is just in the bedroom. No, real intimacy is when I can look in you and you can look at me and not be ashamed.
I love that. I love the mature perspective that you have. It is definitely sobering. We might want to romanticize and idealize and focus on all of the fluffy stuff. But we know that, life is hard, being a leader is hard, and you definitely need a partner that is resilient and willing to go deep, right? And to have that foundation laid on something solid. So thank you for those gems. We definitely will talk about this more in our upcoming Girl Talk, something for the fellas. So if people want to learn more about you, reach out, support you, how can they do so?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those places. Lawrence D. Adams. DM me. I do reply, and I will definitely lead you in the right direction. And you can find me on YouTube. And I teach the teaching class that I do every Friday.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Lawrence, and we will see you at the next Girl Talk. Hi, guys, and welcome to Girl Talk One-on-One. I'm your host, Nicole D. Miller, and I'm so excited to introduce our next guest, Mr. Jumar Newell. Did I say it right, Newell? I was like, is it Newell or Newell?
That's
Newell.
funny. It's Newell.
Okay.
One of my sisters says Newell, like she just want to put a spin on it. And actually, you pronounce my name more accurate. You pronounce my name how it should be pronounced, but most people say Jumar, like it's an A, Jumar. So I'm like, more Jum Jamar instead of
I
Jumar.
think because we have a lot of mutual contacts and I already kind of knew your name ahead of time, so that gave me the leverage.
But I'm saying like I don't even pronounce my name like Jumar, but the appropriate way to pronounce it is because of the root word. It was like my father named me off of a prayer. It's called Jumar.
How do you pronounce your name?
Like Jamar, like it's an A.
Jamar.
I just say
I've
it,
never heard anybody call you that.
I just say it with a more Americanized kind of relaxation, But
Technically, the way you pronounce your name is probably how it should be.
I mean, yeah, in my own sense of like, hey, call me how I need to be, pronounced. So in that sense, yeah. But it's a long story.
Well, Jumar, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, all the things.
I'm a marketer by trade, and I'm a creative by identity. So I delve in business marketing and media production.
Okay. Now, I did kind of cut you off about your name. I am interested to hear about the root and your father naming you Jumar.
My father was in the Nation of Islam for most of his adult life, and he named me after a prayer on Friday called Juma. But my mother is Southern Baptist Christian, so they just kind of met in a common space and said, let's put a spin on it, that kind of deal.
I'm sure you had an interesting upbringing based on that fact alone.
You would think so, but honestly, my father was not overbearing about his religious practices and principles. I actually grew up more in Baptist church than anything, but I do have like a strong sense of the good of both, I guess, religions.
Getting back to what you do, how did you get into your current role? What all does being a creative marketer entail?
So I worked in business coming out of college. I had a little small stint in education as well, but primarily I worked like in small businesses, administrative roles. And I was always like the marketing communications guy based on my degree program. So I had a visual arts diploma and a creative marketing degree. So those paired together, I just always fit towards like public relations, marketing, communication. So I would always have that role in various industries. And I would always find myself in a position where kind of like intersecting businesses would kind of see my talents and ask, is it okay to kind of contract me to do more work and stuff like that? Like whether like I'm doing marketing for a firm and then they're like, who does your marketing? So like then they're like, is it okay to kind of reach out to them and have them do something for us? That kind of deal. So after a while, like I would always did so much side work that it was like I gotta like make this like accountable on taxes. So like so So the early years of Launch Arts were just that. Like I was still maintaining a salary role in other places, but I was like, I had to do something to make sure that these big transactions that they marked weren't coming back to me like, hey, where's this? So I say like, especially the first year, I just kind of birthed an LLC to manage that. But around the same time, my mother started dealing with health issues and I needed more flexibility to be with her. She battled breast cancer for 2014, like the entire year. So I definitely saw, the benefit of, enterprising and giving me leverage. So from that point on, I worked for other companies until about 2019, but I was never again full time. Like I was able to leverage a relationship where, like before remote was like commonplace or hybrid was like commonplace, I was negotiating that so that I could be there for my mom and take in contracted work. So Launch Arts had its own office since 2015. And I've just always been astute about, setting certain things in place and saying like, well, I'm gonna need an office to go to and this and that. It was started off small, but we grew and grew. And then came 2018, 19, the calling was there for me to really expand it. And I already had like one assistant and a couple of contracted, people to do more work with. So I left full time. I started working full time. So I've been full time with this since 2019. And, we just worked to scale and scale and scale since there. So I hope that answered the question, but it just kind of blossomed or ballooned. Opportunity kept presenting itself. And what I like to lead with is a professional demeanor. So a lot of people are talented, but not a lot of people adopt a business etiquette. And that's one standout quality from Launch Arts because it's kind of based off of my approach. People are going to need you to do a service, but if you are able to give them an experience that is highly professional and customer service driven, then they're going to appreciate the service even more. And it's a lost art, honestly. So we are able to attract. It doesn't hurt that we're diverse as well. I like to reflect diversity because I was in a space where I was, the only diversity a lot of times. And I got tired of that. I really did. So I like to reflect diversity. And businesses like to see diversity. Status quo is just suppressing and controlling. Businesses like to see diversity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just have to be the one to be the purveyor of it. Otherwise, they'll go about business as usual. So that's a driving force behind Lawn Chart. So it's the talent, it's the expertise, it's the business structure, but also it's the idea of diversifying the business economy, the business world, and elevating, more diverse individuals. Layman's terms, people that look like me, black kids, who have the talents. I went to a school, I always say this, it's published a couple times, but I went to an art school, so you can't tell me there's not a hotbed of creative minds. Like, we were creative every day. We were creative without being forced to be creative. So when I got to corporate America and they had kind of built in excuses to dismiss their own guilt and saying like, well, it's just not enough qualified individuals, I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that there's a marginalization taking place, even when they're like prisoners to the status quo and not wanting to over exceed the complexion, quite literally, the complexion of their workforce. So rather than kind of like some people do fight from the inside out, but I just don't have the patience. So I just let me go do my own thing. And that's where I'm at with it.
Well, I appreciate you, Jumar. I definitely want to give you your flowers. Being a creative entrepreneur, I've often said I feel like it's having a double major because you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things. And to do that in scale, have a brick and mortar, have a staff, the longevity, the expansion. I love that you're like, oh, it just blossomed. It's like, no, you worked your ass off. Like, let's keep it real, right? And so
it's not easy. I'd say that much. And the funny thing about it is, when scaling, you work past one level, so you think it would get easy, but you're actually entering a new club. You're entering a new level. Like, it's like the first day of a grade level. Like, it's not like the last day of a grade level. Because if you're a high school freshman and it's the last day of school, now I understand what it's like to be a high school freshman. But now you're a high school sophomore. So from an entrepreneur aspect, you don't have to stay humble. It continues to humble you as you kind of climb different. It just continues. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm humbled again. Oh man, we crossed this threshold. We're masters of this threshold. Well, tough luck. Now you got to climb this step and be on this level, and you know nothing about this level. So, that's how it goes. So
my question, I'm sorry, in that regard, my question is, did you have any mentors or advisors who assisted you in your elevation? How did you know the blueprint? How did you know what next steps to take?
That's a good question. Short answer is yes, I've had mentors. I think a lot of people do this. We assign mentors even if they don't assign us as mentees, right? Like, you just see people and you're like, I'm going to latch on to you, that kind of deal. I've had inspirational mentors. I've just had life leaders. I cite my parents. My mother really but she really pushed for us to be in the arts. So she would do things like, we didn't have a lot of money, and she would like get me piano lessons. And trust me, I'm not a piano player. But it was the fact she wanted to expose me to things, like, and I'm like, Mom, like we could have, she was outspoken, so we were allowed to be outspoken. I'm like, this could have went toward the grocery bill or something like that, But she wanted us to try things, like, so she got us all at School of Arts and wanted us to hone talents. So she's a mentor just based on like follow your, let your talents take you places. And she was outspoken as well. My father was always very measured. So I always kind of looked at him like to not be too hot tempered and things of that nature. So my parents are my foundation. My grandfather was just being kind of like a pillar. And then I take it to like inspirations. Like I grew up idolizing Jay-Z, because he was like you never saw like a rapper / businessman until like and I'm like, wow, so and he would rap about it. And it's like, so you're not just a talent, you're somebody who is controlling their own destiny. And I used to read Vibe magazine and stuff like that. A lot of the moguls of the '90s that are like it's hard to mention
that
right
are
now.
falling off now.
Yeah. I that was a good generation for like kids like me, because it was like, oh man, all these people are like their own bosses. So that was like very inspirational. And then I found inspiration in pockets before I get to a tried and true mentor. I'm very observant and I'm like a pop culture junkie. So the show Mad Men, which is like a period piece in the 60s, does not cater to my demographic whatsoever. But I love films and I love stories. So I was like extremely intrigued by Mad Men because it's Madison Avenue, it's ad agencies, and it tells the story of a firm in the 60s and the lead character. And it's got this style to it, and it's got, a lot of appeal that, it's nostalgic for a lot of people. And I just got into it, but I also saw what wasn't necessarily shared, how an ad agency is ran, and it's really ran by creatives. And since I was doing marketing, I was like, oh, okay, this is such a fun show to watch, but it's also like you begin to get like insights. And then, one of my more tangible mentors was a lady who's no longer with us by the name of Sally Roseman. Sally Roseman was like my most tenured boss. And I like to think of her as radical, but, she was against the grain, and she was a very strong business mind, but very free-spirited Jewish lady who I went to work for because they saw a video resume that I had floating around. And they wanted me to come work with them. And this is in like real estate training and education. So I really credit her, because when you're in a position of employer or leader, you can make or break a talent with your own ego if you don't watch it, and if you want people to stay in a certain position. And I was always like an ambitious person, so you could sense, well, Jumar won't be here long, that kind of deal. He's always climbing, that kind of deal. But she encouraged, so I stayed longer. Like, she encouraged and she made room for my ambitions. So I stayed longer with her, to a point that when it was really time for me to go, like, this is something that happened between her and I. So I gave her my resignation, and she said, I can't take that. And I just agreed to be whatever you need, whenever you need me to come in, kind of deal, certain stuff like that. Because I think believing in somebody breeds loyalty. You know what I'm saying? So she believed in me, and then she valued me. So it was like, all right, whatever you need. Even though, I got all these things going, I'm here for you, that kind of deal. And I found that to be a great, bond that I had with her. And then there's a ton of other mentors. Right next to her was virtually the CEO there. Her name was Courtney Taft. And she was like breakneck. She was breakneck in terms of like her style of like delegating. And at first I was like, I'm not getting this. Like, I'm probably not performing well. But after a while, like, I got that flow, and I credit her for that. It's not coincidental that I pull mentorship from both men and women with an emphasis on women. I grew up with a lot of sisters. I always saw the power of a woman's perspective and also a woman's authority. Like, I was one of the youngest. And that's why I think the reflection is evident at Launch Arts. We're like 70% women, because I definitely see talent, and I'm like, hey, look, you need to be here doing this and that kind of deal. So,
well, on that note, we appreciate your women empowerment, creating spaces for women leadership here at Girl Talk. So with the upcoming, go ahead.
I didn't cut you off, but Well, that's nice, but I appreciate women empowering men. We empower each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to. Like, so one
Agreed.
hand washes the other.
Which is another reason why we are doing something for the fellas for the next Girl Talk, because we want to create space for men to kind of have these vulnerable discussions that I feel like most women, it's just kind of normal for us or natural for us, or at least we have more spaces for that to kind of breathe that. The way I would put it is I feel like we're leading in the area of inner healing, wholeness, and discussion. So I just think we have that to offer our men and the male leaders in this community, which is what I'm foreseeing to happen at the next Girl Talk. So I'd love to get your thoughts on what you're looking forward to in this next discussion.
Yeah, no, you guys are leading. I give you that. We're gaining because we're learning. Because we're learning that we can't survive unless we come together and we express, So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to continuation of breaking down any sort of barriers between men, especially men in business. It's some gentlemen on the panel I know and some I don't, and I hope to walk away knowing all of them and having a rapport with them. In a lot of ways in life, I've been fortunate because I have a band of brothers, like not my biological brothers. My biological brothers, we've been close too. One of my biological brothers is no longer here, but I have a band of brothers that I've been best friends with since we were 12 and 13 years old. And it's 4 of us, including myself. We definitely have that realm of expression and realm of straightforward vulnerability. But what I've learned in business, things get a little bit tight in terms of like expression and vulnerability once again, which is why I seem to bring in more female personnel than men. And it's not something that I care to have in a lopsided ratio of, so I know there's always an impasse there between men just sharing their thoughts and their feelings. But it's a mental health crisis these days. And we got to shed all of that to really express ourselves as men, as black men, allies. It's just imperative that we do. It's like, there's nothing else to say, but let's be communal. Let's have a community. I don't gain anything from division. And I think we all have an ego to an extent that it's our confidence, but I try to monitor any sort of superficial ego because we're all trying to get somewhere, but if I could get more personal to our community, the black community, we're not getting anywhere running a race by ourselves. And the final result of growing as an individual in the American story does not benefit a black man to have risen above and then go be buried in a cemetery away from his community. You know what I'm saying? This is the way I wanted to put that, because you can elevate and be amongst the greater American community, but the biggest plight and the biggest injustice was done to your community. So you might have gotten out of your community, but the story of your community is still in shambles. So the only way for us to change the story of our community, if that means anything to you, is to work with your brother, work with your sister, but also work with your brother, and not be like, oh well, I'll be the black guy in the winner's circle. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to have black people in the winner's circle, or you want to focus on the black winner's circle. You don't want to necessarily isolate yourself, or at least I don't. Some people do, but I don't feel any sort of gratitude in being isolated and elevating. I want to take my group with me. I want to change the narrative even slightly. Because, I'm a storyteller, so the American story right now, we are not looking so good. Like, our chapters are like open-ended. So I want our story to have more highlights, not just the fact that we invent a lot of things and then it gets washed away and it gets shrouded and debated on who started it. Not just that we had someone come to galvanize us and they got X'd out, but like, no, some of the change did stick. These people did this and this went that way, I'm really, really big on that. I can just cite my parents again for being of the generation of really trying to be change makers. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely resonate a lot with what you said. One of the things I will say, even though women typically have these spaces of vulnerability, you touched on it in the business world, right? I don't know if we have them as much in the business world. And I think that is what makes Girl Talk a little bit more unique, because we are changing the narrative of what female leadership looks like. Mm-hmm. Female leaders are allowed to cry. Female leaders are allowed to go through trauma, be open about their trauma. I think that we've always had to wear these hats and don these capes and, be the strong woman. So a lot of our conversations have been about being vulnerable, going through hard things, breaking down with our mental health and all of that, but bouncing back. So not that we don't go through hard things and just keep it moving, but we do really, fall down and get back up. So I think that right now we're coming alongside each other to do that. And with this space, it's inviting the men into that, because it starts with the leaders. The change that needs to be made in our communities, it's always with leadership. Right? So if we can model that as servant leaders, then the community will be transformed. But I just wanted to throw that out there. But we are going to wrap up our conversation with you, Jumar. So those who are listening, how can they reach out to you? How can they support you? What are your websites, your social media handles, all the things?
Yeah, just follow everything Launch Arts Media. We're a recognized brand now, but we are still working to grow and expand. If you get behind what we're doing and you support the businesses that we represent, then that makes all the difference to us towards our growth. So launcharts.com, Launch Arts Media on all major social medias. Reach out to us, engage with us. We do a lot of advertising. We do a lot of brand management, development. We do a lot of production in terms of film production and things of that nature, but we're always open to new ideas. We've done a few community, engagements, community collaborations. If it's something that you can visualize that can be carried out through strategy and technical abilities, we can do it. So come to us with an idea and try to line up a budget, and we will get you. We'll work with you. And that's kind of like the name of the game, is like we're a creative house of capability. So. Launch Arts Media.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for this interview.
I was looking forward to this. Let me give you your flowers, Nicole. Everything that you're doing, from the point that you make as an accomplished writer and publisher to actually curating and bringing together communities to have conversation. That is more than a ripple. That's like, a wave of change. Like, you are responsible for the conversation that's going to take place. And you have been responsible for the sisterhood that Girl Talk has fostered. So you've already, and I think I may have told you this already, but you've already done instrumental things. And, I just look forward to being of service and helping in any way I can as a member of the communities that you work to bring together. So,
well, thank you, Jumar. That means a lot. Okay, so you guys are going to have to tune in to what Jumar has to say at the next Girl Talk, something for the fellas, and we will talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. To continue the conversation, join our Girl Talk community by following @GirlTalkCLE on Instagram and Facebook.com/HTOHB, where you can join the Girl Talk Facebook group. You can follow me personally on Instagram @HTOHB, on Facebook.com/HTOHB, and at YouTube.com/@HTOHB. Feel free to reach out via email info@indiemillerpublishing.com. If you're a writer who wants to take the next steps into becoming a published author, you can book a one-on-one consultation at indiemiller.pub. Just let me know you heard about my publishing house through Girl Talk, and I'll give you a 50% discount on our one-on-one. If you'd like weekly inspirational nuggets, you can subscribe to my blog and monthly newsletter at NicoleDMiller.com, where you can learn more about me and my writings. Till next time.